I'd like to ask a motion that we adopt the agenda, adopt this evening's agenda.
Second.
Just
Point of order.
staff has a discussion as well.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, I yield to staff.
The city this morning received
Thanks, Mike.
notification from the agent representing items 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4 on tonight's agenda. That's the Forney Road Hotel items, and they are withdrawing their applications at this time to consider amendments to those applications. And such application, if it were to come back to the city, we will publicly notice and get that in front of you. So at this time, items 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4 are canceled.
Point of order, Andrew, can the motion to approve consent stand, or do we have to pull the agenda and then approve the modified agenda?
It would be perhaps the cleanest way would be to the person who made the motion to adopt the agenda to retract that motion, and then another motion with the information that I provided that items 7.2 through 7.4 have been taken off the agenda.
Well, since we don't have a consent calendar, we can treat them separately anyway. Just noticed it wasn't a consent calendar. So we essentially need to rescind the motion, Mr. Chairman.
I rescind the motion.
So then, move to adopt an amended agenda that excludes items 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Motion to adopt the minutes of February 17. Motion to adopt. I just made a motion.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No nays? Thank you. That brings us to item 5. Items of interest to the public. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the Commission on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. State law prohibits the Commission from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the Planning Commission under specified circumstances. The Chair reserves the right to limit the speaker's time to 3 minutes. The Chair will recognize the speaker and ask that they state their name for the record. Personal attacks on individuals or comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy will not be tolerated. So does anybody care to come to the podium and talk of any items not on the agenda tonight? I don't see any volunteers, so that moves us on to item 6, communications from staff.
Staff has one communication tonight, and that's the letter dated January 6, 2015 from the El Dorado Irrigation District. This concerns item 7.1 on the agenda. It was actually provided for you at the February 3rd meeting for this item. Staff neglected to include it regarding this last packet that was distributed last week. So we apologize for that. But I did make it part of your record tonight by distributing that information to you. I will also give a copy to the applicant.
Any other communications from staff this evening?
No.
Thank you. Great. Well, that moves us into section 7, item 7.1. This is continued from the February 3rd, 2015 regular meeting. This is regarding project SPR 2014-06 Sierra Central Credit Union, I beg your pardon. And at this point, I'm going to ask staff to deliver their report and recommendations.
Sure. Thank you. The item again went before you on the February 3rd. The Commission decided to continue the item in order to give the applicant time to consider the public and member input or comment relative to the building architecture, as well as signage proposed, and then come back to the commission for your review and approval with alternative suggestions for the building elevation. The applicant has submitted revised building elevations. Those were made, copies were provided for you based on the discussions that included the following. The roof has been modified, replacing the original smaller in height shed roof component with a roof gable with exposed wood trusses. The wall sign along the north elevation or the parking lot elevation was removed. One of the 69 square foot halo illuminated wall signs was removed also from the south elevation. One approximately 45 square foot halo illuminated wall sign was added to the west elevation. This is the elevation facing Easy Street and Green Valley Road. And the rock veneer, which was a cobbled look before, has been swapped out or replaced with a stacked stone veneer. Once again, this project is a request to demolish the existing 7,000 square foot, two-story financial office building located at 225 Placerville Drive and replace that structure with a 4,000 square foot commercial building, which staff presented to you once again back in February the 3rd. The applicant and their team is in the audience this evening. Staff finds that the building elevation and the revised site design, et cetera, as conditioned and analyzed by staff, appears compatible with the city's building design guidelines, the zoning ordinance design criteria, as well as the community design element goals and policies relative to building scale and building setback from the street. By incorporating variable roof style, facade treatments, and exterior elements using stone, metal, and wood materials and colors, provide visual interest and are compatible with existing building improvements within the project area. Pedestrian and vehicle access provided would allow safe and reasonable passage to and from the site, including the completion of a pedestrian access to the intersection of Green Valley Road, Ray Lawyer Drive, and Placerville Drive. As for the signage proposed tonight, staff reanalyzed the proposed additional 45 square foot halo illuminated sign, calculated the removal of one of the 69 square foot halo signs that were proposed previously, and due to the 147 feet of business frontage that this site has, the maximum wall signage under city code would be 165 square feet. Proposed signage, however, is only for the walls is only 114 square feet, so well within the maximum permitted under the sign regulations. The wall signs also appear architecturally and contextually appropriate in terms of scale, content, materials, and illumination. As far as landscaping, staff reconsidered, and after hearing from member Russell at the February 3rd meeting, staff does agree that it would be difficult for staff to, as well as the commission, to make a determination that relative quantities of trees and shrubs meet our minimum requirements for natives as well as drought-tolerant plant species. Therefore, staff is requesting that the Planning Commission, and we've added a condition for your review tonight, is for a final landscape plan with quantities, species-specific plants, and their locations, as well as an irrigation plan, be submitted and reviewed by the Planning Commission upon approval of site plan review this evening. So in summary, it's staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission conditionally approve the request as conditioned herein in the staff report. Make the findings beginning on page 5 of staff's report and subject to the conditions of approval that begin on page 6 and continue until I'm going through the pages here into page 11. Once again, the applicant and their team is in the audience tonight to answer any questions you may have. And that concludes my staff report.
Thank you very much. Do commissioners have questions of staff on this project?
I was on condition number 4. It sounded a little confusing to me. I think I understood that it's saying no TIM fees or no CIC fees is applicable. But with that extra not at the end of it, it seemed a little confusing.
Yeah, the intent is that neither TIM fees or the sewer
Okay.
fees are applicable in this.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't appear that there are any other questions from the commission to staff. So at this point, I'd like to invite the applicant to come to the podium and present your request.
Group, and we are asking you guys to take a look at these revised elevations. We've gone ahead and we liked the stacked stone that you guys suggested, so we selected one that we thought was compatible color-wise with the rest of the colors in the building. We reviewed your signage suggestions and spoke with the client and everybody back there, and they agreed that the sign on the north face of the building facing the parking lot would not be required. We could do the signage in the windows and such. And then we also adjusted the signs on the Placerville and the Green Valley side as discussed in the meeting. We reviewed the roofs and we looked at a lot of different options, and we took the larger of the shed roofs, the lower larger one, and converted that to a gable roof. And we looked quite a bit at how to change the tower, the taller shed roof to a gable, and we looked and we looked and we tried several different options, and we found that we still really liked the shed roof. So part of our reasoning behind that is we were looking around in what we liked in Placerville. So you drive down the downtown, you drive around, and part of what we liked was actually the variety. When you go downtown, it's not a homogeneous, everything matches. And that's part of, I think, the charm of it. And when we looked at old mining photos, although we did not see a lot of towers, you did see that there was variety in the roof styles. Things were not, cookie cutter throughout. And then we also looked at some of the areas in town that maybe were not our favorite, and some of those were some of the shopping centers where they were very homogenous. Everything, all the interest had been kind of taken out of them. They were everything, it was the same gable repeated again and again and again, and it didn't necessarily highlight a piece of the building. So we wanted to bring this back to you, and we felt like we had improved it, and actually I like the gable on the lower flat one a lot. And we wanted to let you take a look at it again.
Thank you. Open it to Planning Commission members if they have any questions of the applicant.
Thank you. Under architecture, I like the new gable. Looks fantastic with the open beams in the gable. So thank you for doing that. And just because you might understand better the floor plan in relation to the roof plan, is it possible that the taller roof, the shed roof, be the gable and the lower one be the shed? But I see the rooms below them are two completely different.
They are what is below what is now the gable over there is kind of a mix. There's both the front area, there's some office space where the banking happens, and then it also covers an area in back. So it makes a lot of sense to be the gable. And then where the tower is actually over like a break room. It might be nice to have a little bit of light up above. At this point, we really liked this design. Yeah. The gable looks really strange on the tower. It doesn't look good. And so we looked at this, and we were hoping that you guys would reconsider, given the variety of things.
And then another question, given the way that the building is supposed to be used, is it possible to turn that shed roof 90 degrees so the vault is facing Rayleigh's?
Oh, so that when it's
You
facing.
lose your
the
sign
Claytons-
surface is the only thing I could think of.
Because you want it facing with the flat of the roof facing the street, or you're saying
The window
flat
side.
of the roof facing the parking lot?
The window's facing south, but I think if it turns, you'll lose your sign
Yeah, we do,
area, so-
we really do like the sign there, but, that's a possibility. I guess it would look more like a gable to people perhaps, but,
I'll have to admit, after looking over it at several days, it's softened to me.
Okay.
It's not like the original design, so thank you.
okay.
And then just the stonework, I did like what it shows there. I don't think it looks too much like river rock to me, but if you look at the old soda fountain, it has those larger and smaller stones.
Kind of mixed in.
And that's the kind of the look I did like. I don't mind the stacked stone either, so either one I'm fine with. So, that's good for now.
Yeah, so I'd like to just pick up on where Commissioner Drobish was, and I do want to commend you for taking the time and the effort to make some changes per our suggestion. Again, going back to his comment with regard, so again, I concur with the introduction of the gable on the shorter tower. With regards to the shed, and you're right, it does have some characteristic of mining component. I was out touring actually in Amador County and came across some that had that nearly identical sort of feature. Picking up on what Commissioner Drobish said, I think what you were saying, Mike, is if we look at the east elevation and the way the roof is raised there, change that to the south elevation, right? And then it would face Rayleigh's, it'd face Placerville Drive. And so I would echo that sentiment if you rotated the roof then just 90 degrees. Or I'm curious what drives the actual height. I'm looking at the south elevation now. What drives the actual height? Because the only aspect I don't like about the shed right now is with the vertical lines that you have, it really dominates to me. And if we could scale that back a little bit, and I think by changing the roof around, you could accomplish it, or you could lower it altogether. And so I don't know everything that's involved with that lowering, if there's some other dimensions that would suffer or just would be impractical, interior or exterior. But if we could do something along the lines, and I realize I'm starting to nitpick just a little bit, but that is still a little bit overbearing, I think, in the architectural component. So, and I'm asking you to redraw it on the fly.
Get out my pen and, we could look at, I think in terms of, I think rotating it would really affect the signage area, and so that is a concern for the client. Perhaps lowering it a couple of feet might be workable. The biggest thing is you just proportionally, you don't want to start to make it look like a funny little squat thing on the corner of the building, so it has to do a little bit with proportion.
I think if you could do something about 10% worth is about all you'd need. And looking at the signage, there strikes me as being a significant amount of space, at least on the rendering here, below the sign itself. So if the Sierra Central came down a bit, it was actually more centered in there. And if you actually did that lowering or made the change, I don't
So you're
know.
talking about maybe 3 feet?
Yes, yeah, just a little bit. It's not a whole lot. Can you come to the microphone? Do you mind? Can he come to the microphone? He's going to ask a question.
I think he was asking me a question about
we just want to
proportions.
capture it on the record, is all.
7 feet difference.
Yeah, so, Yeah.
That was my question. I just want to know what the difference was between the height of the shed roof and the lower gable roof on the other end of the building. So if we lowered it 3 feet, you know.
Yeah,
we'd
just
still
a
be
little
4
bit,
feet
I think
higher.
that'd be fine. Do you think you could do something like that?
I think we could probably do 3 feet.
Okay, that's good. Yeah,
Just bring it down a smidge.
yeah,
Okay.
that was my only, real comment. Again, thank you for, taking the time to make the adjustments.
Mr. Chairman, if staff could make a suggestion. Staff would recommend that all information and comments be considered first before the commission deliberates and starts negotiating with the applicant regarding any modifications.
That works for me. Okay, well, I like it. And I want to commend you for, on page 2 of your narrative, including the photo of City Hall. I like that. Okay, so thank you. So at this point, yeah, I was getting there. So if there, anyone here in the room would like to comment on the application, please come to the podium, identify yourself.
Kirk Smith, Placerville. What I presented to the staff is a copy of the correspondence I had with the architect on February the 13th. It helps to summarize the written comments. When we were here before, I understood that the interest of this project was to replicate or build a structure that was designed to pay homage to the mining history of this community, something that would at least be reflective of something inspired by the historical roots of this town. If that were achieved, it'd be an exciting concept and a great tribute addition to the community and certainly to the petitioners. My letter notes that I have no idea who the owners are these days of that credit union. They could all be from New York for all I know. But if they work with local historians and to come up with a project that looks like a mining structure, you'd have a really memorable project. So on one hand, that's what you could have. The problem I had with it before is as follows, and I gave you an illustration of an actual mine. It's the Kennedy mine. Most mines in this area did not have towers. They were relatively few. Why? Because when you started a mine, it was usually a small-scale operation. You had no idea how long that vein would go. It could go for a long ways and get larger deposits, or it could literally pan out, as the expression went. The Kennedy mine had a long tower. The reason is because while the tunnels would go in a horizontal fashion, that big tower was to lift the ore out and down to a mining dump. So there's no mine anywhere in the Mother Lode that had 2 or more towers. They only had 1. They were gabled roofs. The rock, as it was described before, was a dark structure. When I came here before, I described a project that we had in mind. Again, that's not before you, but I just offered it by way of illustration. And I did not know that Sue Taylor and Chris Payne would be here, let alone know that Sue Taylor would present some reports about a survey done among one group, the Shingle Springs Coalition, and was pleased to see that the #1 design that that group liked as what they'd like to see more of was the very building that we're using, and that's the first one in that letter. That's the Manzanita room. Now, what's interesting to me about that is that that looks like Mariposa or the local placer rock, like you'd see in a building from the 1850s that's on Pacific Street as you go down to Sacramento Street. But to get that kind of rock and install it would be prohibitive, astronomical. That actually looks like the real thing. So you have something that's indigenous. When there was talk about putting up a sign, I don't know if that's still how that's handled, but I understood that when I talked to staff later that initially they had an idea of a actual flume, which is a great idea. Then they ran into a problem of water, EID, it's a drought. but there never would have been a flume close to a mine, because the last thing you want is for the mine to get flooded. What I suggest, and still do, is for landscaping, have an ore dump. You get indigenous rock, quartz, Mariposa slate, you get a mining cart, put it on there, and then you're gonna have something that looks like a mine. When the tower was described as what it was the last time, I understood the answer was, in essence, I don't know, it could be a light shaft or, in essence, atrium. So if it doesn't matter, why not have one tower and have it taller? Because then you have a real landmark. So when people are driving down, they don't even need a sign. They just say, it's the mine. You can't miss it. It's on Placerville Drive just as it gets to the curb before you get to Ray Lawyer Drive and, the fairgrounds. I hadn't heard back from the petitioners, so I'm afraid I let this slip and just got word today when I was out of town that this was up. But I think that what's attached give you an idea of some things that could be done. If it had not been described as being inspired by mining, I wouldn't have been as concerned. My ancestral roots here go back to the 1840s and to a gold mine across the river in Kelsey. So I've been around mines. On Carson Road, right behind there, as a little kid, we'd go on the ore dumps and collect crystals. Now what I hear is instead this is kind of like a tribute to the hodgepodge eclectic designs of the town. I'd rather it was something more consistent. So if it's built, one story can be, if it's consistent with the history, a good story. The other one, how do I know? Because I could pitch it easily. But I didn't hear, you're looking at photographs. Did anybody talk to a historian like John McCabe, who gives presentations every month at the History Museum on Mining? There is no shed roof. There's no mine structure that had two towers. It was one. So those are the things that have concern. As I described before, it kind of conflicts with what we do, but then maybe that'd be a good thing, because then you'd have a contrast of two dramatically different efforts. One where there's some effort to be consistent with the original style, and another where it's more inspired. It's like having one of those movies where it isn't purporting to be a documentary, even based on real life, it's inspired by. Or like a portrait that's done by Vincent van Gogh, an impressionism versus the reality of a...
We're at 6 minutes now, Kurt. Would you mind summarizing?
Pardon?
We're at 6 minutes now.
Thank you. And that sums up the view. So it really means, in conclusion, only a minor amount of tinkering could put it into the historical frame that was envisioned.
Thank you.
Sue Taylor, I just, I wish they would have fixed both roofs. That's kind of what you sent them off to do, and they didn't do it, and I'm depressed that I have to come and make comments again about it. And as mentioned before, these are the roofs they put on those, what we all call the Jetson buildings down in Cameron Park as an architectural statement, and one of those is still not leased. I don't know, it's been 6 or 7 years. People don't like those styles so much in this county. Maybe they like them where things are more modern, but they don't seem to do well here. And I don't know if in your design standards for Placerville that you have codes that encourage modern architectural styles in what I think is more of a historic area. The roof is 7 feet taller than any other part of that building. It really sticks out, and once you allow that to be built like that, that's it. Every time we all drive by it, we'll be going, ugh, they did that. And this is a new modern fad that's being built everywhere. It's not something that, it's just different. If I just got back from Petaluma, and they're building all these new modern structures for high density residential and everything else, and they all have these roof lines. And I guess it would be nice if, I hate commenting on architects because I am a designer. I go through this, but I like it when people come to a community and try to make things fit, so it feels good when you go through there. This was my bank for over 30 years. I have other issues with the way it's been located on the property, that you've got this is probably not even a matter for here, but you've got an ATM machine that's pretty much hidden from public view in a secluded circle there, or whatever you call it, in a courtyard, basically hidden from public view or people going down. So I have a safety issue of the way this has been located on the parcel, with the entrance to the bank and the ATM machines being put in an area that nobody can see that. So the art renderings can be made to look really pretty, but when this is built, it's going to look awkward. It just, for me, it feels off balance. And I just wish they would have fixed the other roof, and I probably would have just stayed home. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. Kathy Lishman, resident of Placerville. And I watched the meeting on this the last time this was on your agenda. And so I felt that I had some concerns. I'm pleased to see the pedestrian access that was added. I know that staff says that, you know, when the road is redone, who knows what would happen then, but we all know that sometimes something takes a really long time, and so I just think you need to make it as pedestrian friendly as you can, because it could be there for a very long time. My main concerns are the public property that's being utilized, and I know that they plan to landscape it, which is a benefit to the city, but I was really concerned about the monument sign that's being asked to be put on public property. It looks like it's out by the street, and I know it looks huge compared to those people standing there, and that staff has recommended that it be reduced by 25%, but what size would that be then? When you think about the El Dorado Savings Bank across the street, they have a monument sign up on the hill, and you can find El Dorado Savings Bank, you can find Wells Fargo, you can find the Mountain Democrat. The Mountain Democrat has no sign on the Placerville Drive side. I just don't think that they need a huge sign on public property, nor do I think it needs to be down by the street. There's a bank that goes up, there could be a very good sign there. And I'd be interested in knowing what the size is of the El Dorado Savings Bank sign and what the size is of this sign, reduced 25%. The building itself will be prominent. It's prominent now, even the one that's 2 stories but sitting back on the lot. It's going to be out toward the street. I don't think people will miss it. And customers know where their bank is, and people who intend to be a new customer, you know, they'll be able to find it. I just don't like the idea of a monument sign put there on public property. At the corner of Broadway and Mosquito Road and Main Street, that used to be a Lions, it's now a Thai restaurant. They are using public property across the street for their parking. And the idea was that when the city needed or Caltrans needed it, it would be, you know, they'd lose that. Well, that's been there for years and years. So it just really bothers me to have public property used for a sign for a business. I appreciate the landscaping, of course, but I also think that, I assume that the staff would, you know, have a lot of say about what kind of landscaping went on there. And also, many years, there's been a Christmas tree there. Up on Broadway, they were asked to put a Christmas tree up, so I would hope that you could ask for that also. The lot is visible, the building will be prominent, I don't think they need the sign. And I do think the building looks too modern, and I agree that it looks like hodgepodge with this side looking like that, but that isn't why I came to comment on the building. I came to comment on the public property.
Thank you. Okay. Well, at this point, the commission will discuss this application among themselves and with input from staff. So,
I'm ruminating at the moment.
Looking at the elevation of the monument sign, it gives the low height of the roof at 6 foot, but not to the high point of the shed roof there. Guessing it's in the 7 foot plus range. And if the proposed condition is to shrink the entire thing by 25%, is the sign area going to shrink with that? Or will they shrink like the stone work and the timber work? I do like the details of it, but I do agree that it's a little too far out towards Placerville Drive, and it should probably come back in further, because one thought is coming and going from the east driveway line of sight. When you're trying to look down towards Spanky's and Green Valley, it seems a little too far forward, and if it does stay there, it needs to come back in off the road more. And then just wanted to clarify that the sidewalk work would not trigger having to tear up the curb cut at the intersection now and put in a new truncated dome, or is that a plan? Does staff know? There's an existing curb cut right there at the stoplight of Green Valley, Placerville Drive. Can they just use that and pave up to it?
I think that's the intent, yeah.
Okay. And then I would like to see, it doesn't look like any kind of sidewalk whatsoever is going to be done along the Placerville Drive strip, even though it's fairly flat for most pedestrians. I'm still concerned wheelchair access, they would be basically riding halfway in the road, and it wouldn't be that much to just make an asphalt sidewalk. You already have an existing ramp at the intersection. You just have to ramp it down at the east driveway, just a 4 foot asphalt patch. And I agree also with Kathy that let's do it now. Let's not wait in 20 years, because there's some idea that something might happen with that. It seems a nominal cost to keep wheelchairs out of the street. Just for landscaping notes, the applicant will come back, so I'll just read off some thoughts. The pine tree proposed at the north elevation up on the bank, they're very messy. They dump a lot of pollen. I wouldn't mind swapping it out with cedar or fir, but also consider large trees, large roots in a small area, destroying that retaining wall over time. So just a thought, maybe go with smaller trees. I do like the idea with so many smaller stone retaining walls around, adding something like creeping fig or a vine to get growing on it. Creeping fig's very gentle, and it just adds a nice touch. You could also get a vine growing on the chain link fence in the back and soften that. Even on the trash enclosure. Thought there. And then right on the south elevation, basically in the front of the building, the pad that you're going to create, doesn't look like any trees are going to be planted there. They will be down lower in front on the no man's land. So there really won't be any kind of sizable plants in front of the building. Just even bring 1 or 2 of them up off of no man's land and put them in front of the building. Don't block your architecture or your windows too much, but just add something there. And then on the southeast corner, there's a sycamore that's going to go in your planting bed. And I just think at maturity, it's really going to block your building from westbound Placerville Drive. And maybe just move it north in that planting bed a little more. And then definitely, if you're going to build a new pad and compact it, when you go to plant trees, dig proper holes with proper soil amendment. Otherwise, if you just dig a shallow hole, they're just gonna die. Just some thoughts.
Just a couple of questions for staff. Andrew, on page 4 of the staff report under signage, if I understand correctly, there's 114 square foot total wall sign area proposed, correct?
Yes.
And then, the last sentence in that section, the proposed 124 square foot of aggregate sign is well within the 294. What is that, what are those two numbers referring to? That one-
124 is the 114 plus 10 square feet for the ground or monument sign. The 294 is the maximum under the sign regulations for aggregate, total aggregate sign area based on 2 square feet for each 1 lineal foot of business or site frontage.
Okay, so I feel great, because that's what I thought it was. Now, however, we have 6 times 8 for the monument sign is 48, and if we already have 114, 124 is not the right number, is it?
Well, that's the sign structure. The actual sign text is only 10 square feet.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So I'm just going to make a couple of observations. The first point I'll make is I think I believe that the applicant and their architect are talking about inspiration versus replication. I was never under the impression that they were trying to replicate any particular readily identifiable mine, that they were just taking simply some inspiration from that type of architecture. And so I think to apply a standard that, you know, it should look like some other replicated mine, I don't think is really what they were shooting for, and certainly I don't think is a standard that I would necessarily want to hold them to. There's always a challenge, I think, with the modernity of the structures. You know, we're building new buildings, and particularly relative to what's there, without making it look like, I think it was Commissioner Washburn would say Solvang or Disneyland, those kinds of facades, you know, they had, you know, where it was so authentic, it was almost fake. I think there is a balance there. I respectfully disagree with the visceral impression of stark modern and the Jetson building comment. I know exactly what building that is. I've never ever had that, and I have a very visceral reaction to that building whenever I drive by it, without question. I don't have anywhere near that kind of visceral reaction with this one. I don't think it strikes that note at all, and I think with some revision, as I had suggested to the applicant earlier about reducing perhaps the height of that, the shed side of that structure, and I think it really kind of minimizes that, but I don't make that connection at all. The monument sign in the public property area is a question to me. I don't know if staff could offer some additional comments or suggestions on that. Because I don't have a good solid sense on that piece. But I'll make 2 observations. One, they could clearly be adding a whole lot more signage than they're requesting and be completely compliant with the sign standards. Okay, so they have a lot of signage they could be doing, and they're not doing it. And I would hate to see them add more signage over what they have now. It's been stated that there is a value, clearly a recognized value, to the whole landscaping of that hill that I think would be much more of a focal point for that corner than the monument sign itself will be there. So my inclination is probably to say, you know, that really it doesn't bother me all that much, but I'm not sold on it. I'm not necessarily beholden to that would have flexibility, but it's I don't think it's egregious in terms of how it's set up. So there's just a couple of comments I have right now in terms of where I'm at. Overall, I think it's good.
Yeah, I would agree with Michael at my reaction to the building in Cameron Park is quite different than to this building. And it's also, I mean, whether or not we like that style of architecture, it's a much different context than we're looking at here. I do want to ask, because of the issue of this, what I see from this aerial photograph, this circular area projecting into the intersection, more or less. And I guess if at some point in the future the intersection were ever re-engineered, that piece of public property might be, I don't know, maybe you need it for a traffic circle or a roundabout over there. But what I am curious about is what is the credit union being deeded in perpetuity the use of that piece of land, or is there something that it changes at the pleasure of either party, or just what are the terms of that?
Just so I understand which land you're talking about, within the city's right-of-way,
Right, so
where they're proposing the monument sign.
as I understand it, it's in this round dirt area. Right. So once there's a monument sign there, and circumstances change, and I'm just curious what remedies there are available to the city to having that sign removed. I guess you could do it in a condemnation, I guess. I don't know anything about that. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm not hard over on the sign not being there. If there's a remedy built in for the city, I know you're dying to answer the question. Go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead. Yeah.
I guess the best way to describe it is any request for an improvement within the city's right-of-way must go through an encroachment permit process. What that permit process would do, that permit is revocable. It is not, assuming the Planning Commission were to approve such improvements in the roadway, or in the right-of-way, excuse me. The mechanism, if the city were to need that right-of-way for, as you mentioned, a traffic circle, a roundabout, widening the road, what have you, then under that encroachment permit, the city would have the right to require the removal of those improvements at no cost to the city. The only cost associated with them, if they were to fail to perform, the city could cause the removal of those structures or facilities or what have you, and then cause a lien to the property to get that money back. But yes, there's a mechanism, and so any approval tonight by the Planning Commission, if those improvements involve the right-of-way, then yes, an encroachment permit would be required, and we would have the right to rescind or revoke that permit.
Thank you.
I have a quick question that I forgot here for staff. Is it possible for Planning Commission to condition a utility at their expense, utilities expense, to underground utilities on a condition of, say, this project? The telecom, the lower lines of the power lines there. Leave the high voltage, but the ugly, I'm assuming they're telecom lines going right across what will be right in front of this brand new building. Can we force the cost of undergrounding that onto the utility?
No.
You could condition the applicant to
I'm
pay
sure the
for
applicant
costs.
would like that, yes. It's my understanding from the Placerville Drive plan, the city does have a goal to have all of that stuff underground at some time. At this particular point, for this particular property, with the it's clearly evident that those lines exist and they extend further down Placerville Drive. So at this point, I don't think the city's in a mechanism ability to do that with this particular project. We have required that from any exterior source, that pole or poles, to the building, that is underground. I think it works best for the city to do it comprehensively at one time, perhaps with the assistance of the utility company and probably a lot of financial assistance from other sources in order to get it all the way underground. But at this point, no, there's no mechanism for the commission to do that.
I think I can help with a little context on that too, and that is, especially during the 1980s, you saw a lot of aerial plant power lines, telecommunications lines in downtown areas be moved from aerial into the underground. That program writ large for the state of California was called the Service Improvement Program, or SIP program. And where they got the money was that the utilities were able to adjust their rates to be, so it was a revenue neutral thing for them. So all of those service improvement programs, I imagine at downtown one time there were phone lines and power lines, 18 kV, what have you. PG&E and AT&T bumped their rates, and the ratepayers paid for those improvements. And when it happens on Placerville Drive, I promise you that's how it's going to get paid for next time.
I guess again, I've been sitting here kind of ruminating over this, and I don't have a solid position one way or the other with the monument sign in the public property component, but I'm struck by the fact that I don't think the casual observer would realize that that's public property. The casual observer would not realize that the city owns that. And so it looked like there's a sign encroaching on it. So unless a commissioner's got, or staff has got something they can offer on that, and I would be, frankly, I'd be in a position to go ahead and make a motion to move the item, at least to get some discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and move the staff recommendation for the approval of the request. Let's see, do we have a number on this? Yeah, site plan review 2014-06, adopting the staff report and the attachments as part of the public record. Accepting the staff's recommendation is presented with the findings, Roman numeral 1, A through F, Roman numeral 2, A through C, Roman numeral 3, covering engineering, planning, building division, El Dorado Irrigation District, and El Dorado Fire District, also include the requirements as indicated in the letter received, or letter dated January 6th from the El Dorado Irrigation District, specifying some other requirements that we haven't considered but are a matter of record, and also requesting condition, or adding condition, this would be condition 40. Well, excuse me, the El Dorado Irrigation District is number 39. That's already covered. So I'm going to add then 40, request of the applicant to do some further modification, subject to they can submit subject to staff on the shed component of the roof, which would consist of either alternating the roof orientation itself from an east to south direction, and or lowering by a percentage the overall height of that structure to minimize its visual impact. That's my motion.
Second, and possible consideration of a couple of friendly amendments. I would definitely like to add to condition 19 that a temporary 4-foot wide AC sidewalk shall be provided along Placerville Drive until street frontage improvement agreement number 102 is fulfilled. It would just be an asphalt sidewalk for now along Placerville Drive. And then add to condition, the end of condition number 33, basically the monument sign shall not block safe line of sight. And then condition 18, I would like the temporary asphalt sidewalk from the property line along Easy Street down to the intersection to match the width of the new concrete sidewalk on Easy Street to the west of the property line. Looks like the new concrete's 4.5 feet wide and the new asphalt is 4 feet wide. They should be the same width.
I'll accept those amendments to the motion.
I have a comment about the architecture, and I really reluctantly bring this up because I probably said too much at the last meeting about the architecture, but maybe it did prompt a little bit of the revision. You commented a bit ago about changing the orientation of the tower, and I'd like to ask the architect. I don't think what you suggested is something that has come to my mind, and I know the mic won't pick me up, but I'd like to go up there and show something, and then with the architect, could she come back up and respond?
Is it something that I need to come up there to see that you're pointing at?
Well, it's pretty simple.
I think you just need to go to the podium so we can record your responses to it. And we have a point of order. We have a motion on the table. Do we need to move this to table, or is it absolutely okay for us to have the deliberation this way as part of the discussion? We're under the discussion part of the
We
motion.
can call it discussion.
All right, fair enough.
Well, the comment was made to change the orientation of the shed roof, moving it so it's slanted another direction. But I don't think what I have in mind correlates with what you might have suggested. Part of the architecture, anything that bothers me now, is the tower, and it kind of looks like it's going to take off and fly away. It's soaring, in a sense. If this, and you can see what I'm doing here, would be changed to this, it wouldn't change the signage at all. It doesn't affect the signage, but it kind of brings the roof line more into the building. Instead of flying away, it's coming in, and it matches up a little bit more of the gable roof. We've got this here, then we'd have this here, and it's coming in this way. So I'm just wondering what your comment would be about that. It doesn't affect the signage, probably doesn't affect anything on that tower.
That's a hard request to look at without having a chance to go and sketch it and see what it really looks like, because everything, it sounds real easy, but then if it changes the proportions, it can make it not look good. So,
If we're in discussion of that roof line, I also thought of a clear story roof. You would still have a shallow roof line.
Like
You'd
that?
have a clear story, and you could choose which one cleared over the other. I'm not sure if that would be the roof line
Yeah.
instead of shed. And you still get your light coming down the tower, but it does depend on the rest of the building.
So, this was something that, this is something that was brought up just a couple days ago by somebody at Sierra Central, and it was adding sort of on here to get the shed. Can I step up there and?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know what all the rules are.
Well, normally we'd have a bailiff, but we don't have a bailiff tonight.
Shock me. So this was something that had been brought up just a couple days ago. We were already, it's just adding, it was discussed, I think it looked
Yeah.
more,
I think the second small.
this is the second small little piece there to kind of start to get that shed. So. Throw that out there since that's something that had been brought up.
Yeah, from a side elevation, a cross-sectional look, it does have a gable look to it when you look at inside profile there,
And
so.
it's,
yeah.
you do see those in buildings around here a bit, the stepped roof like that. So it was brought up that that was a way that we could perhaps, if there were any issues, maybe that would work for everybody, hopefully.
These elevation labels, either this one's incorrect or that one's incorrect.
So what you've got on your, that was done quickly, so.
Ignore the titles. Ignore the titles.
Oh, north, south, east, west?
Yeah, those are wrong, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Okay,
gotcha.
sorry, that was just done.
I understand what Commissioner Russell is saying.
Which is different than what we've shown there. It just happened to be, since you were talked about
No,
stepped
yeah, yeah,
roofs.
Can I see your drawing, Mr. Drobish? I was looking for something that kind of resembles what Commissioner Russell was suggesting.
Well, I was just suggesting tipping it the other direction.
Correct, yeah, that, and did you draw this? This is yours? Your
Yeah.
draw, okay, and then you drew this. I kind of like this. Right,
Those of you keeping track from the program,
so the real question then with this, and I can see some merit to what Commissioner Russell is suggesting. The real challenge with it is, well, for you, of course, but also for for us knowing if this is attainable. I mean, if it's really, aside from inconvenient, I'm never moved by inconvenience. I just go on the record for that. So, pretty much everything we require, if it's not something you would ask for, it's an inconvenient. I accept that. But if we were to change, if you were to change, or if the roof were to be changed, so the slope is the opposite direction is what we're talking about. And that strut that's on the, to the right there, that strut is now also flopped over. I have a nice illustration of this here. I'll put you on the spot and just ask you, because you know the interior and the dimensions and everything far better than at least I do. Can you think of a red flag automatically? Forget the inconvenience. Is there? In fact, we're messing with your drawings, your vision. Is there a red flag automatically that you say, you know, we're precluded from doing that because of this structural concern, interior or exterior? Can you think of anything? And I realize I'm putting you on the spot with that.
Structurally, I see that there would be no difficulties tilting a roof this way or this way, given what's underneath it. My concern is just with the proportions of the building, and I hate to commit to something that then when we really try it out, changes the proportions and the look. So that's my only concern.
So I'm gonna, all right, I appreciate it. That's an honest answer. That thing's about as good as we're gonna get. Okay, I don't have any additional questions. So my reaction then, particularly since the landscaping plan has got to come back to us, we have to see it anyway. I would be comfortable conditioning this, and then the applicant would leave here this evening, and then they're gonna go and they're gonna draw it out, and then if it's really impossible, they could just tell staff, you know, this is just impossible, we can't do this. I'm thinking that's doable, and they can make it look well proportionally, and otherwise, I don't see it as being a problem. I know you're probably cringing, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just some thoughts on that. I think you have a grand opening sign on your building there, right? So you have a target date. I'm just looking at, I sketched out a clear story with the center portion being lower. I think it's a compromise between Member Russell's changing the slope and kind of a gable look. And the clear story could be very short. And
I like clear stories. I built a house with a clear story, and the only thing is I'm going to ask is, are we losing the original intent was to try to pick up a mining inspiration. I think if we do that, we're completely going away from that piece. That's attractive as well, but I think from a simplicity aspect.
well, if the shed roof stayed as is, I think the Jetson feel kind of goes away with that exposed support timber strut. The materials, I don't get that feeling from this. If it just came down somewhere 2 to 3 feet, it would start to be less of an eye catch for me.
If the shed is flipped over, I don't think it needs to be lowered, because I think that does away with the I'm gonna fly away aspect. You know, I think it could retain the same height, you know.
But I think we should really consider getting the building approved and getting them on their way, and
Well,
They're gonna come
yeah,
back
I'm
with
happy to
plans.
condition it, I'm happy to condition it that way, and if they can work with it, then they're off they go. They can go do it. And if there's a real challenge with it, then they can always come back, but that would be their, how their incentives are aligned, whether or not it's necessary to do that. But I think it makes sense.
On a positive note for the architect, one of these meetings I won't be here.
So, so Commissioner Russell, then you are making, offering a friendly amendment to the motion that would say, as an alternative to lowering to reducing the height of the shed, alternatively, no, that's not how you want to do it. You want to say we're going to reverse the roof line and they can retain the height. It'd be up to them if they want to retain the height or lower it. We'll leave it up to them. Okay, so we'll remove the requirement. We'll remove the requirement for the reduction in the height by whatever percentage, couple of feet or 10%, whatever it was, in exchange for the flipping this. They can reduce it if they want. They'll have to just look at it and say it would make sense if we didn't soften this out a little bit.
But by not reducing the height, that doesn't affect the signage, and it probably affects the window on that one side very little.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't affect very much. The break room is under it, that's probably one open space. I think it would work.
Okay. Staff's following, we able to follow that well enough? Okay.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yes, certainly.
So I had a question. If you condition it, I'm just trying to understand procedurally what happens. So we're approved, and then as a condition, we provide that information to staff, and staff reviews it, and if staff says it's acceptable, then we move on? I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to understand how the procedure happens, because
Yes.
it's unusual. Or it's a little different, and I know different jurisdictions handle things like that
That's our
differently.
idiom, actually, doing things a little different.
Welcome to Placerville.
So how does that actually function?
I'm contemplating, I'm sorry, Pierre, I won't speak for you, go ahead.
Yeah, staff can respond to that. Basically, your condition should read, at the conclusion of the conditions being modified, then basically the applicant shall submit revised elevations reflecting the condition.
Yes.
So staff would want to have revised elevations submitted to us
To you,
that
okay.
staff would then approve for the file.
Correct.
That would reflect your approval.
Yes,
So when they submit their construction plans, their actual improvement plans,
Yes.
then we compare those up against the approved elevations.
correct. It won't have to come back to us.
No,
Okay.
that's correct.
The only thing would have to come back to us if you just said, this is just not doable, then that'd be up to you to say, well,
Okay.
we're gonna have to go back to committee. So then that kind of aligns the incentives a bit to say, how undoable is it really?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so if staff has the motion clear, then I accept that amendment from Commissioner Russell.
Ju-
Additional discussion, I guess.
Well, staff does have a
Yeah.
question. Once again, to summarize, the height of the building is not being conditioned for this tower feature. It is the slope of the shed roof component.
I had a condition in
Would
my
be-
original
yeah.
motion that they were gonna reduce the height. That has
You've
been
struck it.
struck. That's been
Struck,
struck
okay.
in exchange for Commissioner Russell's suggestion.
Which, to summarize, would be what, Commissioner Russell?
So well, I'm sorry, Commissioner. I'll be quiet now.
Just so I'm gonna address you. Can you restate?
Well, my idea is just to reverse the slope of
Reverse?
the tower.
Okay.
Instead of sloping away from the building, have it slope towards the building.
That's great
Over the building.
for the minutes. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
So your earlier motion could kind of been put as an either or, either lower it or flip it, and you're now. We're gonna require. Okay,
We're requiring you to flip the roof orientation, the slope orientation.
okay.
It's still it's at your discretion after you do that, looking at the proportions, if you want to lower it.
Okay.
So my requirement that you do that has been removed. You're no longer required to do that. You may decide after you play with it that, you may need to do that. You may not go any higher than you proposed here, but you may lower it. That's the change.
Okay.
Okay, Michael, you have a motion out on the floor. Okay, motion and a second. And I'm kind of, I'm kind of at the Jenga point right now, is I'd like to see all these little blocks of wood be restated and, what's the whole everything here? So I guess I'm asking you for that. Or staff's understanding.
Well,
or
so,
whatever.
you asking for a restatement on the motion?
As amended in this process of
Okay.
these last 30.
So the motion is to approve, as stated, approve, accepting the staff report, all the conditions as specified in the staff report. In addition, the amendments that were offered by Commissioner Drobish on items 18, 19, and 33, I believe. And then additional requirement that the applicant shall reverse the slope of the shed tower structure so that it slopes in the opposite direction. And the applicant may also consider reducing the overall height of that at their discretion. That's pretty much, I think, the motion.
Thanks. Okay, so motion second. Is there any more discussion from staff? Any more? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Are we ready to take a roll call vote on this?
I think so.
Okay.
Member Friend.
Aye.
Vice Chair Drobish.
Aye.
Member Russell. Chair Lowry.
Aye.
That, I think our action is appealable, by the way. If you don't like anything we've done, you can just, you have the option to take it to city council. Or anybody else can do it, can appeal it too, so.
May we, I don't know if I'm at the right procedure point, but can I also ask a question about you've asked for the asphalt walk in lieu of because we had a compressed DG walk up along Placerville. You've asked for asphalt there. How does that relate to our requirements? We had talked about doing an in lieu of fee. Would the cost of installing that AC paving reduce the amount that we would be required to put in bond with the city in lieu of, you know what did I say that all right, Mike? Okay. And so since that's coming into the same area that we would be doing the in lieu of fee, then that in lieu fee would be reduced by the cost of the AC. Is that correct?
You're I'm not sure I understand the in lieu of fee.
So I and actually it was, we talked about this back in December, so that's when I believe you were on leave. But we talked about how we are conditioned to, in the future, when Placerville Drive is,
Street frontage improvement
yeah,
agreement?
the street frontage improvement, then we would have to put in the sidewalk and gutter once it's all determined, whenever that is. And we had talked in December about possibly doing a bond in lieu of that to release us from that requirement. We do the estimate, we put a bond for the cost of that work, so that then the city is given the money now. Do you recall that? No? Yeah. We talked a bit about it in December after our pre-app meeting. And
I'm not recalling that discussion, but I do understand what you're asking.
And so it
And
sounded,
it's probably separate from this application. That would be something if you wanted to talk to the city in regards to the status of the street frontage improvement agreement. Right now, the city doesn't know what the alignment, the ultimate alignment is for Placerville Drive, and that's the reason why we weren't requiring any frontage improvements to be made along Placerville Drive, and we're also allowing for then you to apply for an encroachment permit, entering into an agreement with the city in order to maintain landscaping and install a monument sign within the right-of-way. But
Mr. Chairman, if I may, through the chair, this is outside the commission's purview.
Okay.
yeah, it would be staff's opinion that, that any discussions regarding the street frontage improvement agreement are at this time outside of this application.
okay. We just didn't know how being required to put the AC paving, the cost of that, if that had any bearing on the other condition of the site involving doing frontage improvements in Placerville. So that's the only reason I wasn't sure if this tied us into anything or not. If it's completely separate, I'm just trying to understand.
It's probably separate. I believe the commission does have the ability to impose that as a temporary allowance for appropriate ADA access.
And this would be only along Placerville Drive, just for the length of our property line? Is that what the proposal is?
It would only be within
Our property line?
your
Okay.
frontage only.
Okay.
Well, by my charts, we are now at item 8, matters from commissioner and staff. Hearing none.
Oh, you're asking staff. Oh, okay.
Item 8.
I was waiting for the request. Just to let the commissioners know, I did I spoke with City Clerk Zito today, and she informed me that based on the City Council's action last week to reopen the recruitment for the Planning Commission vacancies, and reappointments, that that date to submit applications, and this is for the public watching at home or here in the audience, that Tuesday, March 31st will be the deadline for the receiving of any planning commission applications. And then subsequent to that would be any interviews that would be conducted by city council. So what that means for this body is that we do not anticipate having a second planning commission meeting this month. And the first meeting in April, if we have a meeting at this time, I can't speak whether we will or not, but we will ask the members who currently are termed out to remain as commissioners until the reappointment process is complete. And I think Director Rivas has another matter to raise tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Painter. Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple of announcements. I want to announce to the commission and to the general public that tomorrow, beginning at 6:30, there will be a town hall meeting in regards to the Main Street Rehab Project, and this meeting will concentrate on Phase 3, which is the Bell Tower Plaza. So we'll be seeking public comment on exhibits and different alternatives to various paving types and appurtenances to be made to the Bell Tower Plaza. And then on this Thursday at 7 p.m. there will be a more formal groundbreaking ceremony for Phase 1 of the Main Street Rehab Project. Phase 1 is being the water line replacement and the replacement of all the service connections to the businesses along Main Street. Construction has somewhat already begun. You probably noticed a lot of the USA markings made in the street. There is a meeting between staff and the contractor that will begin tonight at the Bell Tower at 9:30, and some construction will begin, but the actual groundbreaking ceremony will be, again, 7 o'clock Thursday at the Bell Tower.
Okay, Commissioners.
Thank you for that. Is it Thursday night when heavy construction impacts will start to affect traffic?
Construction will be at night, and so there will be flagging, and there will be, of course, some impediment to movement, but for the most part, cars will be able to traverse through Main Street. There won't be any stoppage of traffic.
Thank you. And then we were doing last year the revamp of the development guide, and I was wondering when that might get restarted.
Yeah, that's still on the horizon. I had some family leave time that I took, and that kind of stopped the process during the months of November, December, and pretty much January. So, yes, we are aware that needs to come back to you, and we have some final things to put together, do some formatting, and yeah, we hope to get to that very, very shortly.
And with that, we stand adjourned.